Hi, and welcome, John Morris Show on a Thursday morning. Glad you are with us this morning, and we are brought to you every day by the Brazos Landing and by Alliance Bank Central Texas. Guest in studio. Oh, what an honor today to have Amy Lawerence with us. Welcome to you, number one.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. And Amy, maybe you know the name, maybe you know the face, maybe you've heard her on the air, ESPN radio for 9 years.
For 9 years, and then CBS Sports Radio from 2013 to 2025.
Wow. Okay.
Now SiriusXM.
Now SiriusXM.
I'm running the gamut.
Is right, but and a move to Texas from the Northeast. And you're in Waco today, and we've been communicating, and I said any way we could get you on with us, and you were very gracious, even after a drive up from Navasota, to be on with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome to be here. I love your setup, this 365 Sports.
Isn't it nice?
It's a nice space. Very nice.
I take no credit for it, except for bringing a few pictures to add here, but it is
way
really
better than working from home, which a lot of people do now, right?
Exactly.
Setting up a studio mine is in a closet. My mom has an attic. I work in there, so this is special. It's a treat. I'm out of the house.
You're going to go somewhere where it's just good acoustics, right? When you got some sound deadening.
Lots of tricks.
Yeah.
Because, after 2020, a lot of people who work from home, it sounds like they're in their bathrooms or their kitchens because the sound is echoing off the walls. So I had an engineer teach me some tricks about putting up pillows and deadening the sound, but studio way better.
Well, you've got a lot of tricks. I mean, having done that, so at ESPN radio, you were on nights and overnights for a long time. And then after dark on Infinity, which is CBS Sports Radio Network. Those were late night or overnight also. You spent how long? 22 years or so doing overnights?
I did. Overnights and late nights. And so the show that I left after hours with Amy Lawerence, that was from 1 to 5 a.m. Central Time. Gosh. Now, the neat thing was because of where we started and that it was network, when I began, it would be late night, so West Coast, or people who were driving and working overnight. But by the time I got to my final hour and a half, so 4:30 to 6 a.m. Eastern Time, it really became morning drive.
Oh, that's true.
Because in the bigger cities, more and more people would start to commute earlier. And obviously the pandemic pushed a lot of people out of big cities. But what I found was the people who went to bed the night before and didn't know what had happened in the sports world, they were tuning in to listen. And then I would leave New York City because I worked in Manhattan at 6 o'clock in the morning. And there was already a 40-minute backup to get into the city. So it really was like that, where the entire show featured a bunch of different people who are listening in different patterns and day parts.
That's wild. And then a national show, I mean, all the different time zones also, like it may be late night on the West Coast, which is the middle of the night on the East Coast. Did you ever get used to, working nights, doing it that many years?
I did. I actually did get used to it. And it took me quite a while when I left it in February of 25, right after the Super Bowl, to then find a new normal, if you will. But I'm still a night owl, so it's funny because my husband prefers to go to bed. If left to his own devices, 9 o'clock, 9:30, I tease him. I'm the one who can easily stay up until midnight, 1 o'clock without a thought. So I'm still a night owl, and I'm still working some evening shifts for SiriusXM, but they move me around. So it's a lot of different stuff now, but it took a while to break that.
All right. Yeah, I bet that's right. I can't imagine. So SiriusXM, we hear you on Mad Dog Radio, channel 82, a lot on the NFL network, also channel 88. Do they move you around any other stations, or is it pretty much those two channels? Those
two primarily. Connected with the College Sports Channel not that long ago, and they're interested in bringing me on board. But yeah, just hit my 1 year. So April 6th of 2025 was my first show on SiriusXM. It was crazy too, because it was the day that Alex Ovechkin set the all-time goals record in the NHL. And so that was awesome to be on the air when he did that. But right after that, the very next weekend, I'll never forget this, was the final Sunday of the Masters. So my second show was Rory McIlroy, and remember he was leading and then he faded back and he was down by 2 strokes and then he came back to win. So those are my first 2 shows on SiriusXM.
That is wild. And going back to ESPN days, I read a story. You were on the air. It was a Sunday night baseball game, I think, when Osama bin Laden was captured and killed, and you broke in and you delivered that news on the network.
That was the highlight of my radio career. When people ask me, I think they expect a Super Bowl or a Final Four or some major sports event. But it was one of those moments that I was really thankful for my news background. So when I left Syracuse, got my master's, I did my first 5 years in news. News paid the bills. Sports was volunteer until I broke into full-time sports. But it did teach me how to be a journalist, how to write, but also how to tell a story objectively. And those are invaluable skills. And so that May in what was 2011, remember it was 10 years after 9/11. And I remember we started to see breaking news alerts on the computer. So I'm in studio. They're in the early stages of this Sunday night baseball game. I have no idea who was playing because that part wasn't important. And we started to see these breaking news alerts, and initially it was one line, Osama bin Laden is dead. Like that was the only line. So they prepared me. As you can imagine, this was something we had to break in with. And I had about 30 seconds to get ready. They were going to come to me in a break in the action. So this wasn't even a break in between innings. This was, they're going to toss back to you in studio. They're going to have you toss back to them when you're done. And again, we really didn't know anything at that point. All we knew is that the White House was saying that we got him. We got Osama bin Laden. And as they prepared me and they're doing this countdown, I start to shake because it is such a big story. I don't want to mess this up, even though I just have one line. I have chills even telling the story. But to be able to break in and tell the American public that Osama bin Laden was dead after 10 years of hunting for him. And to understand too, we were a main channel broadcast. So sometimes ESPN has alternate broadcasts, but it was a main channel. So all of our stations across the network were carrying this one game. There was no other programming. And I've run into people since, John, who said to me, I heard the news from you.
Wow. How about that?
So over the course of the next 2 hours or so, we would get more information. We found out that people were celebrating all over the country. We saw the videos of people into the streets in DC and other places. And just to add to some of the details, every 2-3 minutes or so, they would mention it. Then they would toss back to me for any additional information. I'm telling you, I will never forget that moment as long as I live. To be able to share that with the American people was phenomenal.
And isn't that your training, your upbringing, your education at Syracuse? Doesn't it all sort of come together
the crescendo.
At a moment like that, doesn't it?
Yes, it really does. And so I tell my students, because I teach at Syracuse now, I tell them that, again, the time you spend, even if it's not what you want to do, because my last major news story before I jumped to full-time sports was, in fact, 9/11. So I jumped in 2002 to full-time sports, but I would never go back and change that because I was able to work through that event that was more significant than maybe any other event in our history going back to World War II. And to have that experience and that understanding of how people processed, and I was working in Oklahoma City at the time, so I did spend some time in Big 12 country before moving to the Northeast, but to be able to work in that arena, as I say, really prepares you to take a journalistic approach to whatever the story is. And there are some sports stories that we'll get, whether it's a controversy like what the NFL went through with domestic violence, and the number of players that were skating and not being called to, be held accountable for that. Whether it was, I don't know if you remember one night, it was middle of the night. That's why I won't forget it. Tony Stewart was involved. He's a NASCAR driver, longtime driver, involved in an accident at a track where a person died. And that story was breaking in the middle of the night. And then other events that aren't sports related. So I think it was 2 years ago, I was on the air, and in Baltimore, there was a bridge collapse. A barge had come through and had taken out the bridge that goes across the bay there in Baltimore, and the entire bridge was taken out. And so to deliver that news to our audience in Baltimore and DC, a lot of different ways that journalistic training and background come into play.
That's interesting. So on a much smaller level, I graduated from Baylor and I worked at KWTX TV here, Channel 10, the CBS affiliate. And when I started, I was in news because that was the job that was open. And I knew I wanted to do sports, but I got my foot in the door and I wouldn't trade that experience for anything, And then I did get to sports weekends and then weekdays and then came to Baylor.
Did you do them for free? Because initially I would do them for free until
have. I'm not going to tell them that, but I would have. But you're right. I mean, it sounds like a similar path there.
Yes.
And it was great training. And because even in sports, think about how now there are so many sports stories that are news stories also more and more every day.
That's true. You really do see the intersection a lot of times, but also we know that sports is a microcosm of real life, so to speak, is what I say, which means that these athletes are humans. The coaches are humans. They deal with real lives. I used to joke about the offseason in the NFL and the police blotter because something would always come up. Yeah. But you think about the amount of money now that even college athletes are dealing with, and there's no such thing as a separate life, your sports life and your real life. And social media has really changed the landscape too, because we're all access all the time now, even to the point where college athletes have a direct line and we're so involved, sometimes too much so. I believe we're kind of voyeurs as fans where we're involved in their personal lives too. It's become all consuming a lot of the time, not necessarily in a healthy way either. Right. So it's good to be able to navigate some of that and try to be positive and make it a little less icky, if you will.
That's true. Yeah, it can be too much for sure. Yeah. So you teach at Syracuse. You're a proud graduate of the Newhouse School of Broadcasting there. Yes. For folks who don't know, what a list. Is there a wall somewhere that has a picture of Bob Costas and Mike Tirico and all these guys that graduated from Syracuse?
There is actually a wall where there are portraits.
Really?
And just as cool, last summer in New York City, so we were still living in New Jersey and I was still working at the SiriusXM studios in Manhattan, there was a Syracuse get-together. It was an award show. And so not only did you have the Bob Costas who would show up and did the address, but guys like Ian Eagle and Noah Eagle. Marv Albert was there.
Oh my gosh.
He looks very different, of course, a little older and not working the same, but it was a who's who of broadcasting and everyone wearing orange, which is my favorite color.
Wow, that is so cool. I mean, I know some of those guys, cross paths with them. I think Ian Eagle is just the best. He is so good. And Sean McDonough's in that group.
He was there as well.
Right. How fun was that to get you all together?
It was a lot of fun, and they made us fit into a picture. So it was an orange background, I believe, or a Syracuse banner behind us, and we all had to cram in. And the director that I worked for at the Newhouse School, she's the sports director, she was in the picture, and I was in the picture. But the rest of it, all guys.
All men.
So it was nice to represent. Yes.
Very good. So you teach there, but you've moved to Texas.
Yes.
You're down Navasota, close to Navasota.
Culture shock. Yes.
A little bit different. But so are you going to continue to teach there, or could we get you at Baylor? Could we get you doing what you're doing at Syracuse to do at Baylor?
I would love.
How about that?
I would love to do that. Thank you for the promo. So even before John and I connected, I had reached out to the acting dean of the journalism department here at Baylor, and he actually told me that they are starting a sports media major in the very near future, is what he said. And so they told me that they would keep my information on file, which is great. But yes, this month, which this is a little insane, but I appreciate Syracuse for doing this. They're flying me back and forth every Monday. So on Sunday night, which was Easter, and I know you have your own Easter travel story about getting back from the tournament, right? So on Easter night, I was doing a show for SiriusXM. I got off the air at 11 o'clock Central. My flight was 6:30 the next morning out of Houston, but because of all the craziness over TSA, I was a little leery. So I got to my parking space near the airport at 3:45.
Okay.
So slept 2 hours, went to the airport and was thinking, okay, this is fine. I'm early enough. Thankfully, I have TSA pre-check because there were about 30 people in line, 4:15 in the morning. Yeah. There are 30 people at TSA pre-check. However, the standard screening line, John, had at least 300 to 400 people in it. It was wrapped up and down and out into the terminal. But I do want to say really quickly, because I think it's worth noting, not only is TSA kind of back in full force, there were law enforcement and ICE agents all over the terminal. And so I stopped to thank a few of them because we would still be in chaos at some of these airports if not for them.
Wow, how about that? And you made it back okay?
Yes, did make it back. I was stuck in Detroit.
Right.
No fault of my own, but just missed my connection. So I'd rather get stuck on the way home. I was nervous for about a month and a half, missing my class that first day. Did not want to do that.
Okay, so to answer the question, some people are thinking, why Navasota? Your husband has family that is in that area, and some right around here, like Temple.
Yes, actually. So my mom is in Magnolia. She's the closest one. And then a son in College Station.
Okay.
And so I'm learning all about A&M culture and Aggie culture. Right. However, my husband is a Longhorn. He would be really upset if I did not point that out, that he feels like he's in enemy territory.
Fair enough.
We have another son in Austin and then also one in Stephenville. Yep. And then a lot of family in Temple. So the reason we moved is because both of our moms are 80-ish. And even though they're in great health, we're thrilled about that. We wanted to be closer to family and walk through this stage of their lives with them. And so we're pleased to be here, but it is true. I'm dealing with culture shock. So as a good New Hampshire girl, I love winter. And they had the best winter in the Northeast. It's slammed with snow. In fact, when I was coming back from Syracuse, Monday it snowed on my way to Syracuse. And then I stayed in Rochester overnight, flew in and out of Rochester, and it was snowing like crazy. Temps in the teens with the wind chills, and that's heaven to me. Love it, love it. And so, yes, I will admit I cried multiple times over the winter because it was 85 degrees at Christmas. So that's going to be the toughest.
Welcome to Texas.
Yes, and the thing is, people try to be empathetic, and then they say, oh, just wait. You haven't seen anything yet. And I think that's not helpful. But
I was going to say, you haven't been through a Texas summer yet, have you?
Well, I came to visit a few times with Mom. So I do know what it's like. Right. Yes, the summer that we were planning our wedding. So we got married in December because that was our compromise. If we're getting married in Texas, we're getting married in the winter. It's a gorgeous day, but through the course of the planning, was back here a few times in the summer and thought, I'll never live here. Never.
And here you are. Welcome to Texas.
Thank you.
Can you stay through break?
Of course.
Do you mind? Okay. You've got other things going on. We'll find out what those are here in Waco. But great to have Amy Lawerence with us on the show this morning, brought to you by the Brazos Landing, open today, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Great location right there on the river. You would like the Brazos Landing. And by Alliance Bank Central Texas, voted by Forbes 2025 Best in State Banks. 7 convenient locations around Central Texas to serve you better. And on the web, alliancebanktexas.com. Take a break. Back with more John Morris Show on a Thursday. Amy Lawerence, our guest in studio, and we'll be right back. And welcome back, John Morris Show on this Thursday morning inside the TFNB studios on historic Elm Avenue, where Amy Lawerence has found her way to our studios today.
Stumbled in.
Oh, this is so fun.
Wait, what's this? This looks like a radio studio.
It does. What's going on in here? Let's go find out. And here we are. So glad you made it here.
Thank you.
What's going on in Waco? What brings you to Waco today? You didn't come here just for this. I
did not, but I'm so glad it worked out. I actually have a bunch of young women in the industry that I mentor. It's something that I didn't have when I was coming up in the business. And I had, of course, men that I admired in the business, but I really determined that after I made it to the network level, I wanted to help other young women. And so part of my teaching is trying to connect with people. Casey Busher, she graduated from tech actually, and then went to Syracuse and got her master's. She's the one who connected me with Olivia at Syracuse because she was a more recent grad.
Nice.
I had been working with her for a few years just to help her in her career and trying to figure out some options for her. So she's speaking at a class here on campus and we're having breakfast because food is my love language. So anytime there's breakfast, so I'm looking for some good breakfast spots in the area.
All right. Yes. All right. We'll take suggestions and we'll give you suggestions. So food, yes. Winter, snow, yes. You've got a dog.
2, actually.
2 dogs? Okay.
Yes, we have 2 dogs, a mini Aussie.
Yeah.
Her name is Daisy, and she was my husband's when we got married. So my adopted dog daughter. But recently, this is a crazy story. We were visiting family in Temple at Christmas of 24, and I had lost my older Aussie in February, right after we got married in 24. Yeah, it was hard. She was 14. Yeah. She was my BFF. She got me through a really tough stretch in my life. And it took about 9 months before I was ready to adopt. And you go through some of these rescue agencies, and I swear they make you fill out an application that's 7 pages long. Sometimes it's $400 to $600. So I decided we're going to be in Temple. I'm going to run down to the Brazos County Animal Shelter, and was able to, believe it or not, find a dog there.
Wow.
And so we adopted a dog in Texas at Christmas 24, took her to New Jersey for a year, and now she's back here. And since we moved back, this is nuts. One morning, she gets up early with my husband who works from home. She's dancing around. She's crazy dog. So she's part Belgian Malinois, part Aussie cattle dog. So a nut. And she's dancing around. All of a sudden, I'm getting ready to wake up and I hear her throwing up. And I come out of the bedroom and the dog has collapsed.
Oh, no.
Really scary. So in 30 seconds, she went from crazy dog to can't stand up. So we freak out. We've not found a vet in the area. And so we lift her. She can't even stand up. We lift her into his truck. He takes off down the road. I'm calling about emergency hospitals. He is too. We get her to a place in Navasota. They really don't know what's wrong. So they recommend we take her to Texas A&M. Thank goodness it's a world-class animal hospital.
Sure.
I get her up there. By the time I get her up there, I guess she was moments away from dying.
Oh.
Yeah, they get her into the emergency room. So she's bleeding. The doctors see us coming as I'm carrying her up the stairs. And within 90 seconds, they've diagnosed her. She was in anaphylactic shock.
Oh
Believe it or not, she had been bitten by either a bee or a spider or stung by a bee. And didn't know this. The dog stayed in ICU for 5 days. Had no idea dogs could be in ICU. But I am grateful because they take really good care of her. And so after 5 days, we were able to bring her home. And now she's back to normal. Thank God. They say they've never seen an animal have this happen to them twice. But yes, it's funny because my husband jokes, we paid $22 to adopt her and we thought she was our cheap dog, right? $22. Not anymore. Now she's our golden animal.
That's right. Wow. Well, that's a great place to go for care for any animal.
Yes, we were thankful.
Wow. So you are teaching at Syracuse. I found on the web. What is it? A blog? Amy Lawerence,
PXP.com.
day by day. Right.
Yes.
And I found that and looked through that and found some interesting notes that you may share in your class, right? The 12 things to keep in mind, which are good. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I need this. I need to be in your class. No, but they're really good. Like here they are, folks. And this is a good, here's a master's course right now in broadcasting.
My 12 lessons learned from 12 years and after hours.
That's what it is. That's what it is. All right. Number one, criticize actions and choices, not people. Very nice. Redemption stories always resonate. That's good.
Well, you think about it, and you're obviously immersed in college hoops. The great story of that is when UVA became the first ever 1 seed to lose to a 16 in the men's tournament. And then it's devastating and it's humiliating. And a year later, they come back and they win the championship. Talk about redemption. Of course, also as believers and as Christians, we believe in redemption. So I love those stories where you get that payoff at the end after failure, right? You fall flat on your face.
That's true. So that Tony Bennett staff, Virginia, Ron Sanchez, his number 2 guy, assistant at Baylor right now.
Oh, amazing.
Ron Sanchez,
brings a great background then. Tony Bennett's terrific.
Know your audience. That's good. Life would be incredibly boring and stale if we all agreed.
Right?
That's pretty good.
Yes, it's okay to disagree. People sometimes apologize for disagreeing with me. Actually, I prefer that because there's no such thing as, one opinion that we all share. That's just not real life. So
that's good. That's a very good one. It's fine to admit I don't know, or I say I was wrong. That's a very good one. I'll say it all the time. I just don't know. So nothing wrong with that at all. Connection is the ultimate goal. I like that, to connect with your audience.
In 2020, when I was doing shows for 2.5 months from my spare bedroom, staring into a corner, right? And I couldn't go into the studios and there were no sports going on. I realized what humans and what listeners most care about is a connection and a companionship. And I tell my students this now too, as I try to teach them how to stand out in a crowded field. It doesn't matter as much what you talk about. So I could have the most brilliant sports analysis, but there's going to be someone who played the game and can give you something that's more in depth. But if people like you, or on the converse, they hate you, either way, if you make some kind of a connection with the listener, they will keep coming back. And it's more about that relationship than it is about what you say.
Yeah, love that. That's really good. You say do not stick to sports. That's good.
Right? We're not so one-dimensional, any of us, that we only live, sleep, eat, breathe sports. It's just not real life. So during the pandemic as well, I had a grandmother who was 98. How many of us were separated from our loved ones? And then not only did she survive that, but we celebrated her 100th birthday in 2022. Wow. And so to walk through that with people and understanding that, again, we're all human beings, we're grandkids, we're brothers, sisters, friends, parents, dog lovers, that kind of thing.
Wow. Very good. Another one is there's no shortcut to experience. That's true.
You just got to walk through it.
Social media is not real life. There you go. That's
it's not really social. It actually divides us, and it's not real media, though right now it does a pretty good job trying to disguise itself as media.
That's a good one to keep in mind. Take time off. That's always good. Get a break, refresh.
You may remember when you were first in the business, when you were younger, it felt like you couldn't take time off because something big was going to happen when you were gone, or someone else was going to come along and take your job. But what I realized, and what I try to tell young people that I mentor, is if you never take time off, A, you don't appreciate what you have. B, your brain, your mind, your body can never recharge. But also, and this is the example I use, I went on a cruise 2008 maybe. And I was gone for about 2 weeks, and I was nervous because at the time I was working at ESPN radio, and I thought they're going to move on without me. I'm going to miss something. In our stateroom on the ship, we had a couple of channels. One of them was ESPN. The entire 10 days, nothing but will Brett Favre retire or will he go back to the Packers? Right. So I was gone that entire time and the story didn't change. And so what I realized is, kind of like Ecclesiastes says, there's nothing new under the sun. Eventually, even if you do miss something big, you'll get your opportunity. It's better to take the time off.
That's really good. That's some sage advice there. And the final one is choose your battles. That's pretty good also.
Yeah. Best advice I was ever given is choose your battles, because not all of them are worth fighting. Not all of them are worth expending the energy. And again, I say this to a lot of young people about social media. You cannot win as a public figure. You cannot win a battle on social media. It's impossible. So don't waste your time and energy going after people or trying to state your case with people who actually don't care, and all they're looking for is a reaction out of you. And this business is tough. I mean, radio, TV, it's shrinking. There are fewer people doing more of the work. And so knowing how much we give to this business, that it can be all consuming, especially in sports, I do believe that it's better to let other people wage the battle around you. And when it's worth, like the hill that's worth dying on, when you get to one of those, then you spend that energy. But otherwise, most of what we argue over in 24 hours is
exactly. Well, that's great. Thanks for letting me audit your class.
Of course. I love this. Now you can really do me a solid on campus and let them know.
Well, I'm going to do that. And how about this? If things were to work out, if the Lord were to leave you here, and I love that you're a believer, and I love that you live that out. Thank you very much for that. But if you were to be on staff at Baylor, you would just love it, because not only is it accepted, it's encouraged at Baylor, and that's who we are at Baylor University, and you would fit in so well.
Thank you. Well, really, as you know, most of our industry conflicts directly with faith. And so we have to make those tough choices. I do believe that God gives us platforms so that we can be light and salt, even if we're not overtly sharing our faith, which I know you and I have talked about, the ability to pray on the air when an athlete goes down or suffers an injury. But if nothing else, we're glorifying God. And I use the blog a lot of time to share my story behind the scenes. And every now and then I'll drop in a Bible verse, like, to whom much is given, much is required, something along those lines. But yes, God gives us the platform and gives us the opportunity to glorify him.
Amy Lawerence, PXP.com is where it is. So you can see more there. And hopefully we see you more in the future.
Yes, I would love that. Easy commute.
Easy commute from Navasota, she says. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your time here, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you to Mark Kestisher, who connected us.
That's right. He's the best.
Great.
First day at ESPN Radio, I met him, and we've been fast friends ever since.
Isn't he the best, though?
He is.
Mark is such a good guy.
The big voice.
Yes, very much so. Great to meet you in person, and thanks for being here. We appreciate your time. Enjoy the day in Waco.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Amy Lawerence, our guest this morning. We'll take a break. Back with more in a moment. Brought to you by the Brazos Landing and by Alliance Bank. Here, read this.
Yes.
I want you to read this right here. This one, Lake Waco Golf Club.
Oh, I love to golf.
Go. Okay, good.
Yes.
Do that live liner.
Lake Waco Golf Club is a semi-private facility nestled along the north point of Lake Waco, one of the few facilities in Texas to have a full 18 regulation golf course, plus an executive 18-hole par 3 golf course. The bar and grill is open to the public. Check them out at lakewacogc.com.
Never better.
My audition.
There you go. Never better. The live read for Lake Waco. Thanks for being with us. We'll take a break and be right back.